Well, hello, my friend Otis.
Hello.
Nice to see you. We had a hard time connecting because you have a big windstorm over there on Cortez Island.
Yes, power outages are common here. It's a wild
Yeah.
place.
Is are people on generators or you have backup?
Sometimes, but we have gas, which means we have hot water and the ability to cook, and
That's a
we
good
have
thing.
pretty good time with our wood stove and the darkness.
So you're literally in a cabin in the woods.
Yes, we're glamping though. It sounds basic, but it's gorgeous structures,
Nice.
living structures that are
Yeah.
it's wonderful. We're in a queer healing sanctuary at Rainbow's End, on a permaculture land that is called Home. It's an acronym, Humans on Mother Earth, and we're called
Oh,
Homies. And the Rainbow's End part of it is a group of queer mystical healers that have been gathered to hold sanctuary and retreat here, on this island, which is a sacred healing island. And
oh my goodness. It's
yeah,
just magic, isn't it?
I'm one of the teachers in a school called the Edge School, which is part of Queer Directions Learning Center. It's a center serving the community to feature queerness in health, ancestral culture, cultural wellness, tending in general, and just feature those subjects commingling. And I'm really happy we explore them in animist, nature-based ways. So this sanctuary holds that work, and we are yeah, happy to have it mix with our own healing here. As healers, I find I need more time to spend myself as being a healing artist, as someone in the healing arts. So I've been called into making space, a large amount of space for myself to be in that process.
Wow. So
Yeah.
did this center and this opportunity, did it find you or did you find it? I mean, I
Both.
know it's a
Yeah.
co-creation. And how did it come up and how did it come about that you were there?
We have been dancing on the shoreline with the owner of this land for a year and a half. Connie Quayle is about down as a metaphysical herbalist, Mooncat Herbals, and her and her partner Val, who's an expressive movement arts therapist, have been dancing with me and my partner on the shoreline for a year and a half through COVID. Every week we would gather and put headsets on and do a silent DJ dance, all to the same ecstatic music, but with the elements, with the shoreline, which is a magical ancestral place. And then it just emerged this summer that they were seeking landmates and we were seeking to live here, and it just was perfect. And so, but I feel like we maybe dream danced it and gathered for over the last year and a half, as I've seen a lot of threads of community do in the weird reshaping that COVID was. But yeah, we
Ye-
found each other in, I'm sure our guides found us all and gathered us,
Yes.
is what
Oh
it
my
felt like.
goodness.
Yeah.
I just want to come over and feel it and watch and see what's going on there. Sounds like an amazing place. Wow.
Mhm.
So you, Otis, you identify as a queer transgender, mystic, and intuitive, and you work a lot with the stars and the planets. Um, how about we just start with you changing genders?
Hmm.
That's a big
Well,
thing.
I feel like I've always been transgender. I've changed the physical embodiment of that, which has been interesting socially, how being read differently. So I would say that this experience of transition physically was part of a long journey that started when I was very young. I don't remember ever not being transgender in a very visible way and social way. So that experience was part of every moment of my entire life. It was more visible when I was read as a masculine female, and now I'm read as actually, I think a sissy man, which is funny. Because the femme gender really emerged alongside
Yeah.
embodying male. But I think I always bridge genders, and I really have all of them in me. So even when I was a butch, I would put my dates like thigh highs on, or I would love going out fishnet sometimes or whatnot, because it was just part of my mix. And then the more I physicalized male, the more that came out in my gender embodiment or my voice or whatnot. I've seen a lot of people do that too, but I think that it's just because I hold a certain moon. You know how it's half hidden, half not. So
Mhm.
I'm a certain slice. And if I'm male, I'm this mix. If I'm female, I'm this mix, but I'm always bridging. So half is seen, half's unseen. And it's, we're all like this. I've seen that as a health student and practitioner, that we have these polarities dancing, and gender is one of the deepest ways we do embody and dance with that, but with polarity. But it really is an intimate way I've learned about health, because the healing arts, of course, are about that too. you know, and a lot of ancestral mysticism.
So, what changed for you when you became more clear that this needed to be like more in the physical realm?
What changed first was my naming and my pronouns, because I needed to be seen and I needed the social patterns of the psychic
Mhm.
fields of the interactions to be matching mine. And that was an interesting initiation in shape shifting my brain, because those of us in the early, 2000s were coming up with Z and here pronouns, and for years going by that, or just saying, call me he, and everyone had to just change their brain even though they were reading she. And we were starting to play with remapping thought patterns and social um patterns, really, because these are, language creates a shape and it has associative meaning. It's a portal to the associative meaning through that shape. So if you say he, it's really different than she. It's different to receive it if you're not that. And so being trans and actually having the um truth of authentic self be in the invisible realm meant actually bridging to the invisible for people and saying, no, call me this that you cannot see, because that is the pattern that fits me. That is the
Mm.
key that names my lock. That feels like my heart's resonance. The authenticity dance actually helped bridge to the invisible, though, and helped repattern the brain, which is eventually, as a health practitioner, what I've ended up doing, being a master at that, but for all kinds of disease, which is just being dissonant from yourself. The ease comes from wellness, which is your own authentic self in the center.
Yeah.
So if you're off that, you need to explain to people, listen, don't keep throwing me off. I'm not a he, I'm a she, or I'm a Z, or I'm a they.
Wow.
And, I, yeah, really have seen my own brain change. I needed to watch that happen. I think there's something beautiful over a year of calling your friend he after 5 years of calling them she, and then you start to hear someone call them she, and you go, no, they're not that.
Hmm.
The structure has changed. It's as if they've gone through a gender embodiment shift, but it's just with language. So that mind shape shifting was the first thing that visibilized this. That was the first physical change, is the brain change. And it was through language and culture shifting. And then they became a predominant paradigm shift and a pronoun. And I had struggled with that for 10 years. I rejected it too. I said, no, I'm going to be called he because that's easier for people to say. And I just want that to be my version of trans. And then I physically transitioned into he. It's still very transgender language for me, but I do go by they as well. And my partner is a they pronoun person. And it's really taught me to shapeshift my brain to include the multiplicity of ourselves. And people are adverse to that. And it's hard for my brain to, it's been the hardest for my brain to use that pronoun. But it's really good. I think that's why I had this opportunity to have a partner who's a really hard they pronoun person, to really teach me this is true for all of us. And this is actually such a healing gift, that movement of they. And now the youth are getting tested to identify within that. Most of youth these days in schools identify with being in part of the rainbow. And so the they pronoun is going to be very useful ongoing, I think. It's an
Hmm.
important brain repatterning and structuring for us to embrace multiplicity and this space of discovering authenticity. Um, it holds that. It's really important health work, cultural wellness work, I think.
Thanks for saying so. And we've talked before that my gender, or not my gender, well, my gender, but my stage in life, like I trained or took English in university. So, how you use words is really, really important. And so this is so trippy for my brain, the whole they thing, and I respect it.
Mm.
Yet
Yeah, you like
I will
that.
stumble and fall so
Yeah, me
many
too.
times. Yeah. Well, that's good to know that it's not just
Yeah.
like, you know,
No, it's like
an age thing, or you know what I'm saying?
oh well,
A category.
there's something with age that makes it more difficult, but that even makes it so much more profound to actually do the shifting. I think when things
Hmm.
are compounded with time and really difficult to shift.
Hmm.
Those things are really cool though. I've been transitioning genders alongside of people who are in their retirement years, and to go through puberty together at different ages is wonderful. I've been able to see
Oh,
older
cool.
people reclaiming that and changing in having a second youth. Anyways, I think time is pretty shifty.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's beautiful grace to having your brain repatterned when you're old. And I think it's easier in a way too. Similar to how young people really like in the first couple years of life are a little more glowy and really malleable. I
Mm-hmm.
see older people enter a similar glowy malleableness and open sweetness when they're really near the veil. And so you're not there anyway. Sorry. I just no, I just realized that we start talking about your brain being hard to shift. I just say that like there's this weird openness of elder years. I just welcome that. I want that as well as a fixedness. And I want them both to be able to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think every age and everything is reclaiming its authentic power. There's an authentic power to youth and the young people and the way they're malleable and just identifying with this, you know, as a mass really quickly.
Right.
And then the
Yeah.
old people now, I think, are having huge cultural openings too. Um,
It's happening everywhere.
well, the planet has reached a quite a cumulative stage in its different life. So we're facing this glowiness, maybe it's more malleable on the planet. It does feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So this whole transition for you and this kind of path that you've led in life couldn't have always been easy.
No, it's been incredibly hard. The I say the door price for the ticket to this seat and this vantage point in the universe is high. A lot of pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't
Oh
imagine.
my. I think being transgender, well, you see, it's a mystical thing, and I love that I actually directly am a mystic because I can apply that meaning to my pain. It's an old lineage to do this
Mm-hmm.
work. And actually, pain is a sacred element. It's a sacred element of this initiation. It's
Mm-hmm.
a kind of language of it. And there's so many kinds of pain. And yes, I have lived so many kinds of pain. I think that trans people live male and female kinds of pain, if you can imagine that. And to hold both and to hold them in mixes that are extraordinary, um, to hold the pain of it not even being known and being erased and having to find that. The thing is that pain is like I'm a tarot reader, and it's like the swords in the tarot, the consciousness initiation about what does shapeshift and repattern your mind, which repatterns all the patterns in your body. Um, that initiation has two edges to each sword. It's like the labyrinth of lesbian culture that I love. I love that lineage that I'm descended from. The wisdom of it. There's that it's the other side always that cuts the truth away and the lies, and it carves you out. So I've gone through that initiation of an archaeological dig of becoming a self. It's an amazing way to experience the divine and to experience a mystical or spiritual path because it's so personal. I literally like weep to pop radio. I mean, what kind of blessing is that? I love it. I actually love the practices that I get to do devotionally. They're so diverse and personal. And I think about some of our old mysticisms and mystical people like me and the environments they had to do stuff in. And I wonder if I'd just been offered an intact culture with prescriptions, if I had would have come to this depth. I certainly would sit at my vantage point still and still see and experience a lot of this stuff. But now this process of finding myself from erasure and from the dark, that walk and with the unknown and finding and retrieving has been so deeply informative of my mysticism, right, and my healing. It's taught me to be a psychic, a healer. It's taught me all the skills I need to know to meet people in their humanity, to read charts, to look in the dark and go spelunking for all their lost power, and to put it back into place where it can do what it's here to do, which is bring destiny in. We're not just supposed to be stuck in the muck.
Mm. I
The
love the
patterns that
splunking analogy. That's
the patterns that exist are just the finite reality, and they do weave with what ancestral culture calls the fates. But there's like something about this, and this is very transgender. That's the physical embodiment. So maybe I land as a physical body, and people said, well, you can't be a he, you can't be a man until I physically changed, right? For 10 years, I went by Otis and I went by Z first, and then I went by he. And I said, yes, I can. You got to see beyond these base fates, y'all. It's not just about the finite material body. There's so much energetic and invisible body that is giving spirit and animating this embodiment reality. And so to be embodied, we have to remember that it's spirit that's doing it. And these levels of spirit are quite diverse in our gender. And I love gender as it contains like elements of nature energies and mythical archetypal spiritual lineages and energies that want to live through us. It's our destiny to do that. That's what weaves with the stars and our higher purpose. So I love that being queer taught me that, actually. And it taught me a lot of things that mystical culture do, but it taught it to me experientially. I didn't learn from books most of what I learned. Maybe. Yeah, probably. I learned a ton from books. I'm a studied like health practitioner. I obviously had to study a lot of stuff, but I learned so much experientially. The
wow. Well, you've
deeper
been through
layers,
a yeah,
right?
you've been through so much and so many
Oh,
incredible layers of, you know, you've been misunderstood. You've had to
mhm.
work very hard to be understood. And is there discrimination?
Oh my goodness, yes. No,
Hmm.
this every kind of pain is real, like every kind.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And there's discrimination no matter who
And
you
its
are, what
own
you
form.
are, right?
Oh yeah. That's an interesting thing that I like bridge is that I've seen a lot of different kinds of pain. It develops this extreme comprehensive empathy. Now I see everyone as an anxious, um, well, to be honest, I see everyone as a lesbian, and I am offered that generously to the world if that fits you as a life hack. But I see everyone as an anxious lesbian because that makes it easier for me to understand men and anyone. Basically, it's just that's where I have lots of gender codes and jokes, and I'm just like, oh, well, that's just I see kind of people as it helps me to find ways that I can humanize where people are at, and I from my vantage point of bridging different experiences, um, I think I've been able to see people's anxiety extraordinarily in ways where they might not call it anxiety and the world might not either. If there's tons of vilification, so much shame and blame and trenching are very human experiences. I've come to actually see, because I've been through so much illness with all this and seen so much of it from this vantage points that you can only see if you become your enemy. I definitely walked across that bridge and embody that. And so living that bridge, I see a lot of different kinds of illness or suffering or sickness that everyone can get in. And I see that that's what we're here to dance with, and that's the shadow work. As an astrologer, I'd say it's Pluto work, shadow work, and I really am devoted to how much these fallen angels, because if you look at Pluto as like this archetype of even Satan or whatever, the fallen angel, that one that went in, you can even say Anana as an ancestral like old myth that talks about this descent into the shadow. But this work of these lost powers, these lost gifts and treasures of our true authentic self.
Can you talk about
This one,
Pluto? Talk about
yes.
Pluto. You have this incredibly deep relationship with Pluto, or Pluto shows up in any time that I've come to see you or heard of other people that have gone to see you. So it plays such a huge role in astrology.
Well, this world's made of carbon, it's dead stars. And so when we're dancing with death, which is Pluto's realm and the underworld, the ancestral trap power, that's like oil that we're running this whole thing on too. All the rainbow black stuff, right? And
What's that?
that's oil,
Oh, okay, got it.
literally. But if you think about it, even in the energetic spiritual sense, that's the part of us that is hmm, the memory of dead stars, of all life that's lived, and all of those stories and pains. And in death, of course, lots of pain and loss, lots of deep connection. And so, with all of that love gone hiding and entrapped and hidden love and power in life vitality, it's like stars that collapse in themselves. The center of our galaxy is a black hole, and then it devours everything into its own center. Of course we're doing that. Of course
Mm,
we are. But why? This is the veil birth canal between the worlds, because it's rebirthing us. This whole thing is about that. We're transmuting all of that, which is the fates, into what the stars want to guide us to, which is our highest potential. We're a living bridge of that. And I not only as a trans person was taught to hold paradox, but this is a complete paradox. We're stretched like a drum. And how painful it is, how much we experience paradox, whether it's being trans and extremely stretched like me, a bunch of experiences, it makes your drum real nice. It
mm,
beats deeper, and that's what we're here to do. So mystics, old healers would invoke these paths if they didn't have something like I do to bring about so much pain. Being lost, I mean, not being separated from ancestral culture through colonization and genocides has been extreme pain. That's what erased transgenderness, but it also erased the healing arts and the mysticisms that tend it. And it's deeply, deeply in shadow, this incredible potential and love and higher potential. I connect deeply with that as someone who's anchored and keyed in my mystical astral radio to catch those waves through. And what's funny is that the black hole at the center of the universe is emitting giant light radio waves out into the universe that are like epic amounts of energy that go thousands of light years into space. So it devours its own center, which is that Plutonian dark, just like everything that wants to eat light, nothing survives. It spits out at the poles of its edge these thousands of years of light years of waves, radio waves, light radio waves. Of course, that's what's making this whole reality. It's the dream collapsing in on itself and rebirthing. So we're kind of made of this source, this origin. You can feel it in different anatomy. Your vestibular canals tap into it. That's the first thing that you form. I've been doing a lot with gestational movement, developmental movement. It's been informing my practice so much lately. In the
mm.
sacral area and in this base of the cranial area, there's so much. And of course, behind the heart. Anyways, these gates, um, maybe I'm going off on too much a tangent,
No, I'm
sorry,
loving
but
it. Just
this is
go.
where you connect to the deep subconscious and older memories that are pre-patterned and what contain all patterns. And so this is a transgender queer space. Queer and transgender taught me this stuff, that you exist in the paradox in this multiplicity cauldron. And the more I've studied into health and healing arts and traditional cultures, this is what they describe as the anatomy of the universe and of us, this continuum into the mycelium, into the bedrock, and all the layers of dead stars, carbon, and into the fascia and soma of our body, which is a living extension of that filled with water, and DNA, which
Mm.
is the common language among life. So, of course, we have a universal life consciousness. It's called DNA, y'all. And then up into our brains, which are talking back to the DNA, la, 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 la. and then the universe, and we're woven in between the universe and the earth, and we are that conversation, and they're la 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 la. So these sort of different levels that are creating what we know is real are, it's very real. As I've started to work more with the realm of health, of repatterning people's mind and their body shapes changing, as well as their social or psychic reality changing. um and I love how that mixes with the intuitive practices that I do all with the body, like Chinese medicine or medical Qi Gong. I will mix, an astrology reading that informs a pattern reprogramming, and then a somatic subconscious embodiment shift. And that'll change even the fields around that person that extend into their life. So people around them will behave differently. Life opportunities change, so they change their grid inside and out. And so I've been able to see so much more of this queer reality. Yeah. So I'd say my personal initiation really informed my professional one quite deeply, and they really talk and really support
Mm-hmm.
each other. I'm part of a lineage of transgender mystic healers, and my experience doing this makes me understand why that is, you know.
Such a deep path. I could just sit here mesmerized by your words all day long.
No.
It's amazing what you have access to. And I mean, you've really found your place and worked it. So whether you're doing, no matter what you do in terms of acupuncture, your herbalism, your medical qigong, all those things that you do, um, all of you shows up. You don't
Mhm.
isolate.
No,
So if
I
I come to
don't.
you for medical qigong, sorry, I think I said that wrong. Um, I know I get a piece of a lot of parts of you.
Yes, you do. I'm gonna make a chi ball and I'm gonna throw a plant in that after I talk to like your guides at the directions of the universe and talk about where energy got shattered and where it needs to come back home. And then I'll do story work, and I'll do ancestor work. I'll do um why I started out, the plants put me on this path, but I realized the ancestors really work through the plants, and that the plants are some of our original ancestors and extended family members helping us. And so I'll often bring them in because I don't work alone. I work with spirit. Spirit works through me. I invite the divine to do that. And it takes many forms through me. I see more and more of the world as a co-created dream, and that we do this thing called aspecting, which is where you have an entity and you invite it. And ideally, if you become, if we get to reclaim some of our traditional skills, we can do this with consent and measuredly. We can say, I want this spirit to come in this much of me, right? But a lot of times, what just happens is we'll have energies aspect us. These are archetypes, these are animal spirits, they're actual elemental spirits. We get colds, and it's a spirit. It's the ancestor cultures are just, they're descriptive of this, and the modern science doesn't really understand it, but it makes sense to me. Of course, um, the world is actually a spiritual reality. So yeah, you can say this cold is a spirit of this element of the ecosystem, and it's hitting your ecosystem like this. Of course, that's the same if it's a thought pattern too. If you got bullied, boom, throwing that into your spirit, your mental body. So you have different bodies. We all have different bodies. And that's incredibly illuminating to me as a trans person. It was so affirming to learn ancestral cultures that, oh yeah, this explains why I had like these experiences on these spiritual and mental emotional layers. These are entire bodies. They're psychic bodies. I love how health sciences map out the invisible, and that really working there is key to really changing the body's experience. If you're trans or if you're trying to do acupuncture, it's the same.
Mm,
And I
mhm,
specifically work with it with a modality called psychological kinesiology, because it
mm.
goes great with astrology in reading someone's potential patterns and how they tend to be, and all the fates woven between the earth and sky that shatter when you're born. That's what a birth chart is. We're all shatterlings, and we're trying to mend these sick ancestral curses in our bloodlines. And these 6 sad lost parts. It's Pluto work, of course. We're here to do transformative healing and transmute and remember our divineness. So when and gift that to all the retrieved parts, ideally. So when we're aspecting, different things are wanting to initiate through us in the healing work. Maybe it's a gender. Like in this life, why do I have this gender? It's like an elemental spirit that wants to move through my body. And especially being born female, I could really feel that. I'm like, I'm male. I'm still male. I still have
Mhm.
invisible, almost ghost parts. Of course we do. We all actually have all anatomy, whether some's invisible or some's visible. It's um and whether you're aware of it or not is based on what blinders you have or don't have. You can read that, believe it or not, in a lot of astrology charts. You can see tons of gender diversity layers in there of where someone's going to have access to this power and not this one, or they're going to have this kind but it's going to be like this. It's how we're made up. It's incredibly diverse and nuanced. You can read it. It's all in the stars, and there's some ways that we dance with it into its highest potential, and then there's some ways that it also can just take us down into death and kill us and hide us and make us sick, fall
Mhm.
out of our own center. That's all that sickness is. Um, but yeah, when we bridge those fallen parts that have got polarized with their higher potential, then we can return to center. We're just anchoring. And I learned this in medical Qi Gong, but it applies to astrology, it applies to being trans, it applies to surviving microaggressions if you're trans, and all the psychic warfare that you have if you're an oppressed person or marginalized in any way, you've been erased, or you've been criminalized or any way bullied. There's a way where you can even survive these things by living in the eye of this, and it becomes a hurricane. You can live in this sovereignty no matter what. And health often is returning to that, because the storm usually is just a mind's invention that's throwing the body into weird patterns that aren't itself. Like, I think now what I do is help bring people back into authenticity. That is what we do in acupuncture. It's a homeostatic relationship that breathes with the universe again. It knows, we know our way home. The plants can sing that if we do work with herbs. um we can literally often get that from a song. Movement practices are a huge way I'm praying into that developmental movement and really moving like a wave of old patterns that I'll take in the bowl of my head and I'll throw them into the earth, and they go into this whole bowl of the earth. They're discovering it's in giant oceans of water down there, and it moves, rearranges, and then sloshes back up through my soma and into the stars just as far. And it goes, and this is thousands of years that can be rearranged, thousands of stuck patterns. Anyways, this is the kind of qigong that I'm doing lately. I am realizing this queer place of center and pivot is so powerful. And if it goes through our heart like a kaleidoscope, we can just mix destiny in. The fates are not a problem. They're just here, what we're here to heal. They just show us our path. So everything's affirming. It's wonderful when you reach a point of the I, when you're like, and you could say it's the I, but it's the really the we, the place where you're unified with your path. You're like, oh, I know who I am. Even it's like the they pronoun in terms
Yeah,
of
I
it's
was gonna say.
uncomfortably multiplicitous in that place of
Yes.
one. There's many. It's a place of uniting. I One like thing it makes me think of is this teacher I had that said all life meets at the water's edge. And it's like that. All it's even in the astrology chart, all the meat in the center. That's the well. It's in the center of you and it unites the world. It's literally like the center of us. It's I say that I
Mhm.
is like the I like the letter is like EYE.
Mhm.
It's the lens. It's your authentic truth. You can see people's spirit in their eyes, the gate to the spirit. Of course, it's the purpose twinkling. It's like when the beam of the heavens or the sun twinkles on the surface of the water. We're mostly what's under the water, but the surface might twinkle. That's the purpose. That's the bridging of the worlds. And I think that for us to kind of live at our own edge of authenticity, we feel that we're in that magic. It is sovereign, actually, and it's well, it can return the body to states of wellness to lead people back there. Um, yeah, whether it's an authentic state that the body can be in, like we do in acupuncture, we got the channel flows and in body work, right?
Mhm.
Or the herbs can actually sing the body back into remembering its wellness. The body has the wellness in it, though. That's the cool thing. Craniosacral works with this too. Chinese medicine works with it. All the
Mhm.
old ancestral cultural stuff with astrology. It's a map of potential, and it's got the well in the middle, the circle. It said, this is
Mhm.
how you get thrown off in the shatter of trauma, which is birth, the first one. And then everything after that's a ping pong reverberation of that. But this is the weave between the earth and sky. It's like a loom, but it has a warp and a weave, and we're working that, and you work the grid too, Maureen, I know. So then beyond that, into the stars and into the earth's memory, there's gridding, and in between layers of worlds. So we have to repattern. I work with something called psychological kinesiology, which repatterned ancestral gluten and dairy intolerance, um, severe intolerance. I couldn't eat them for 15 years. I would have bad allergic reactions. I couldn't eat them as a child, and then I really lost them and got them back through psychological kinesiology. I've been eating them for 3 years just fine. I love them. I also got back the ability to nourish my food. I feel a little bit more vital when I eat. I used to be so hungry all the time. Now I eat a lot less. I sometimes don't have to eat till 10 a.m. That's incredible to me. Anybody who knows me before knows I would get up and I would just eat a bunch. So psychological kinesiology changed my body, and it did it immediately because I changed my brain patterns with my psychic subconscious embodiment shifting around a whole brain state. So I returned to center, and I remembered a wellness pattern. And it was wild. And I did it with spring pollen allergies too, which came about when I was a teenager. And I just think it was being trans and hit with hormones and a crisis. And I just started, I didn't feel the world was safe to exist in. So that became so inflamed when I hit puberty that I've been having extreme spring pollen allergies ever since.
Oh no.
Because that was just a time when the liver would just get pushed past capacity because it was just a state of crisis ever since. And I repatterned that. I don't have that. So I think this brain pattern thing is incredible because it speaks through the DNA. You
Mhm.
can change embodiment with so many levels of recoding and reuniting the finite potential with the infinite wellness that it actually knows.
Mhm. So
Mhm.
it's never as simple as just allergies. There are so many layers to be looked at.
Everybody's got an authentic pattern. It's just about getting ourselves to hone into the practices that keep us there and remember there, and practices of remembering that. And
Mhm.
then from there, whether it's your gender or like this place of like in healing work where you just like, oh, I feel good.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
the epiphany.
Hmm.
And I study a lot of patterns of bindings. Love science for that. Psychological kinesiology, that's a merger that like created this embodied whole brain state mind repatterning thing. It's very much like the caduceus in astrology with the wings and the two serpents around the staff of health. The staff is the center pole, and of course this is the right brain and left brain going this and that. And the right kidney and the left kidney and your adrenals going, you and me, and I don't know, maybe we're gonna do
Mhm.
something shocking again, because ever since birth, that's the original polarity, is birth, boom
Mhm.
boom, I'm okay, boom boom, the drama of the universe is here. It's the only time you can hear it actually outside yourself is in utero, boom, boom, boom. And then it's invisible after that, and you're in a land of shock, which is what we end up in after
Yeah.
birth. And the whole astrology system is studied from that moment of shock. And it studies a pattern of the kinds of shock that you have. And in Chinese medicine, it's when the first point of the lung point starts your whole channel system and weaves you between the earth and sky. So it's through the lungs we go, and of course it's shock, it's startle. And I've been doing developmental movement because there's this moment before that where
Mm.
you're just like boom, boom,
In
boom.
sync. Yeah.
Oh, and you can hear the universe
Mm.
through that heartbeat, and you spend your whole life looking for that, even though you don't know it's what you're looking for. And but you are in startle. So I work with startle. He's in the center point of startle. You can remember this and that. blah blah blah. It's a very turtle place in the vestibular canals
Mhm.
between the ears. This is the anatomy that grows before the brain and before the body, before the guts, even before you even have desire, before you have physical survival. You're just boom, 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 and it's this inner balance, this inner labyrinth where it rolls forward, back, left, right, up, down. These three sacred movements, which are basically the cardinal direction, the three directions, three energies, cardinal, mutable, fixed. The three sacred directions mixed with the four, this, that, north, south, east, west, all these gates, and that's the sacred seven that form your gates. But these movements, when you return to them, it's like becoming a turtle. You know, they're the old consciousness before the acquired mind. This one knows this is the place of health we always return to. In Chinese medicine, everything came on the turtle shell. This is Turtle Island. Of course, this is our inner labyrinth where we go boom 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 boom, and this is where we can actually be a bull that catches the stars of our destiny from a calm place of like, I know who I am. I know it feels good. That's all. I know it feels good. All this feels good. I think it's possible to feel that in all kinds of identity, belonging experience, all kinds of paradox initiations we hold. There's such beauty in them and trust. And that's what this vestibular canal turtle brain gives you is I'm going to float through the dark, following the ley line of my, with my sensitive turtle body, feeling through the dark and like so happy. Boom, boom. And it, you know, this anatomy that comes before the brain that reminds me of turtles, that consciousness is so ancient. So it's, um, I feel really grateful because when I was first transgender, for years I felt so alienated. I didn't belong anywhere and I couldn't connect to anybody. And really, at a certain point, I realized when I was 21, I realized this after 7 years of being, and this is it's attorney and I'm astrologer number nerd. Major Saturn cycle things. I was 14, I came out. 21, I realized that instead of not relating to anyone, I related to everyone, and I was transgender. And and then I transitioned 7 years later, and then this. Anyways, whatever. We don't need to go on, but going from nothing to everything and realizing that I bridged them was so profound because there's no moment for me as a trans person separate from that. And I know that humanity is the same. It's just I have a lived experience that makes me just, I know it. I want people to know it. There's something so sacred when we have that meaning. We can hold our trauma, the most incomprehensible things, and actually start to transmute ancestral pain into a lived reality of that feels good. Like I believe this is maybe becoming more possible in when people are collectively facing mortality and rearranging as we're having to. I find hope that we could actually rebuild in ways that heal with the ancestral, with the earth, and heal our true authentic selves, and that we can feel good. And that possibly in
Yay.
this gooey time, this very
Mm.
Plutonian time, we can do that. I will say astrologically, we've just ended a 15-year cycle of Pluto and Capricorn, which you can see has given death to a lot of traditional societal patriarchal industrial empire systems and all this. It maybe gave death to everything the industrial materialism built too, right?
Mhm.
And just because that was a train wreck that drove its own self in the ground, obviously, just like
Yeah.
Donald Trump destroyed the Republicans. It's just sort of like these train wrecks are destroying themselves, of course. It's only natural. And then there's a turning point where something becomes its opposite. And I feel that the opposite of that is wonderful. And we're starting to experience it a little bit. Like, oh, maybe there's space to heal and feel. Wow. Because next March in 2023, Pluto's going to shift into Aquarius for 25 years.
What does
So
that mean?
it's just been in Capricorn for 15, y'all, giving death to colonial industrialism and materialism and capitalism,
Mm.
exploiting the earth, extractive resources, that kind of industry. These things are finding their own death, okay? It's just they worship the finite. Lol, okay? So they built a train and it drove it into the ground, whatever. It's in March, it's going to transmute that energy into Aquarius. Aquarius is definitely, it's an air sign that it's a mad scientist with the infinite. It talks about destiny too a lot. It talks about the collective good, rules the star card and the tarot. It's like, let's actually channel the visions that feed something that feels good to us all, actually, and really represents our authentic self, our humanity. This kind of humanity is emerging, and it's an exciting time to be on the planet, to have this ability for people to align with the truth again and the collective good. I think it could bridge to the other cross points that Aquarius is on. Taurus and Scorpio are on there, highlighting our collective evolution right now, with Taurus in the North Node saying, let's grow back the garden with that. Absolutely. Our ancestral
Cool.
healing in the Scorpio gate need that. All our trauma needs that. Our embodied healing with the earth. Of course, we're doing that with our authentic selves. And so Aquarius, it's going to be doing that for 25 years with Pluto. We're going to be seeing a lot of levels with which societal paradigms will be going through a transformation, transmutation. And I think we only could do this once we'd gotten the physical to this state. I'm very curious where it will take us. We're seeing technology leaps, we're seeing cultural things that couldn't have happened before. So I wonder, since global capitalism did reunite the earth, maybe we're going to see health and wellness get to take on forms it couldn't, because we've unified. And there's just something different about that. And it's a very Aquarian thing. So we'll see what death work and Aquarianness looks like, but it's supposedly about liberation and revolution and reuniting everyone with the central authentic self and the authentic good. And these things are so wonderful. So I'm very curious what Pluto will do in service of this work, what this work will do in service of Pluto. And our shadow work maybe gets to be liberating now. We get to maybe heal, maybe our time, maybe we can do revolutionary embodied ancestral healing with the earth now, because we did walk this close to death's door, and maybe it's possible gooey now to be that sweet, and it feels so good now, maybe.
Sounds hopeful
These are the
and
kinds of spells
encouraging.
that, yeah, we
Yeah.
can give death to capitalism. We can all just have space and money and wealth distribution to heal. Some people are sick with money, they have too much. It's similar to if I have an excess condition in the body, I just need to redistribute it. It's not hard to imagine things being reinvented into wellness. They're the old
Yeah.
ways. Yeah, we can remember being ecosystems and acting like them. If you just have too much over here, that makes you kind of ill. um it needs to be flowing. Everybody will find their belonging, including that. And we don't need to be doing this monkey show. It's not based on materialism. It's, there's so much more spiritual work we're here to do. We're here to heal. So I think we do get to do that. And I think we're going to do it in deep ways, ways that do touch into ancestry and do really really transmute trap power in service of rebuilding the garden and rebuilding an authentic world. What even is that? We're getting
Right?
to touch it now. I think
Yeah.
at this cusp of this emergent power coming back into the world, we're getting to sort of experience new levels of authenticity. Oh, and wellness and alignment with that. And then things shed and rearrange, and we're all scared about that, but it's all in the alignment. Focus on that, hone the authentic alignment part, and just notice where it's feeding and generative now, instead of, right? Instead of being so hidden that you can't really have a positive relationship with power. So we're stepping into what can actually feel good. We haven't
Whoa.
experienced this in a long time. I'm going
No.
through feelings that I know I haven't experienced in lifetimes. And I'm just like, wow, wow. It maybe can feel good to be in a body and a gender and on the planet and in a relationship. Maybe every part of this initiation can just hone that. This is fascinating. Maybe new patterns are coming. One of the patterns I've felt, there are many new patterns coming into the planet. One of them that I am working with is deepening and expanding. This one's so brilliant. You do less and more happens I don't know.
Nice.
It's
Mhm.
wow. I
Yeah.
love this pattern. Ah, so I think maybe that's part of Pluto and Aquarius. It's wonderful. And I'm calling in different patterns like that I love that feel authentic to me. Like I'm a theater researcher. I'm a movement artist. I am an artist. Oh, these are healing patterns. I love them.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's important for us to know which patterns feel good and to do them, prioritize them, and to live our contracts, not avoid them anymore.
Mm, such a
Mm-hmm.
good point.
Yes.
Becoming authentic is kind of the name of the game.
Yes, exactly. It's like one of these key
Yes.
things. Yeah, to returning to the well of the sacred.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We all have our individual walk, and we all have DNA in us, which is a collective walk, and there's both. And this is
Mm.
so cool. It's a co-created reality of dreaming with this. It's super cool.
I love how you started off with the dream dance. It's just
Mhm.
perfect. Like, what if this is the dream? You know?
Oh, it's all kinds of dreaming.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful.
Mm. Beautiful. Man. Um, I wanted to just kind of touch base, like you work in the community, in the
I
queer
do.
community. Yeah, can you tell me what that looks like?
Well, it looks like I practice acupuncture, bodywork, herbalism, medical Qi Gong, psychological kinesiology, tarot, astrology. My sessions include elements of these things. I work as a practitioner in Lekwungen territory, which is called in the colonial map Victoria, British Columbia. Um, I now live in Whaletown on Cortes Island, British Columbia, which I can't imagine more colonial name than Victoria, BC, but I seem to have found it. Um, they also call it, well, it's Klahuse land here. So the Lekwungen territory and Klahuse territory where I live, this land is sacred land, both of them, in terms of their locations with the proximity to sacred waters. And these places are incredibly healing. People come here to heal. They're renowned for that. And I I do classes, and my background is in herbalism, farming, gardening, ethnobotany, and I do classes where I bridge animist arts and ancestral folk herbalism, helping people re-engage with their queer embodiment. That it does touch in with all the elements of nature, and as an animist, can really rejoin this big DNA conversation where it's just a big exchange of information, and you can be part of all the levels of that do even weave in with our emotional and psychic reality and our embodied reality, so you can get tons of psychic languages opening up and communing with the animist world as a conscious sentient being, and open up those aspects of yourself to aspect them and really be aware when you have certain powers in you and wanting to live through you. So anyways, I am a teacher and a healer in community, and I guess an artist. I go, yeah, I have spent more and more time these days in my own process of being a healing artist as someone in the healing arts.
So, what's a healing artist then?
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
describe.
I dance and I'll
Mm.
download. I do art and I get information. I'm processing and transmuting my own pain and trauma, and I'm making sense and getting lots of information from my guides and from the universe. I use art as a medium to do this language exchange and be in the conversation of DNA that's beyond the human and even
Mhm.
beyond the seen and material world of humanity, into psychic realms. I do journey work with ancestral story and song and language and prayer. And so I'll do that through different movement, art, song, and I even use a lot of like luminaries, like of course fire and candles are a big part of prayer work and sacred space holding, but I'll even work with um making candles for things, and just I do sacred practices that involve art all the time. They help me with my own healing, and they inform my healing practice. I guess they're metabolizing
Mhm.
mediums. Yeah.
The
But
way
I
that
tr-
you describe where you live right now is
yeah.
like so perfect for somebody like you.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's amazing you were called there.
Well, yeah, there's a tree here that's probably 150 years old. It's very prominent. It's getting cut down today, and we've been in ceremony and visual with the tree because its wood is going to become a expressive movement arts studio. And
Mm.
we're telling this tree, like, so many people, like I have a beloved friend who I've been walking around the ancestral gates with her, Meta, and she's diagnosed with terminal cancer. She's going to pass away soon around the Samhain gate.
Mm.
And I said this, and somebody on the island, a young person just passed. A lot of people are kind of dying. I don't,
Yes.
um, what I see is there's extraordinary visionary people and they're becoming ancestors. And I'm like, ha ha ha, next March,
Ah.
Pluto Aquarius, when Pluto's the gate to the ancestors, all these extraordinary visionaries are becoming ancestors. And my friend who's passing soon is an Aquarius. I told this tree, like, you're relatively young for a tree. You've
Mhm.
also been there and you do have extraordinary place. You can feel it. This tree, it stands here on this hill, and the way the elements mix here, it's just this
Mhm.
extraordinary tree. So I said,
Mhm.
you're among like, the extraordinaries falling right now to become ancestors for us. We're going to dance in you now as an expressive arts studio. And I just love being here, being gathered here to tend these sacred rites. I think in community, our ancestors that are going over now are going to teach us how to hold sacred rites again, how to be queer again, how to be mystical and pray. They're going to be guiding us on the other side. How do we do the rites of passage and grief work, all the
Mhm.
cultural wellness that
Mhm.
holds our wellness really. It's not like, oh, I'm sick and that's bad, I'm going to go see an expert and get fixed. That's not what health is. We actually need to form a community wellness culture that holds us through change. So we'll be keening, which is singing, grieving, ancient staff, we'll be channeling, we'll be feeling, and we'll be healing together and reweaving the worlds that way in our floods of emotional psychic bonding that we get to do. This is the
Mm.
old ways. Culture tends all that.
Nice.
Yeah, all the songs and stories, all the rituals, and I think we're going to be able to do some wonderful kinds of this work in this emerging time ahead of us on the planet because we're going to need to, which is great. And that's what my survivor knowledge knows. You
Mhm.
don't do it till you need it. And I
Yes.
mean, I've learned a lot of great things that way. So bring on the pain. Don't worry. We're
Mhm.
composting shame. We're composting fear and blame. We're composting better words. They're not useful. We're just
Mhm.
all in our own unique pain and we're here for it. And we're going to pray into it together. And literally, all the colonizer babies and all the indigenous babies, they've all woven a new planet in diaspora. And all the ancestors now are weaving as one giant throng beating and singing for our healing. I can hear them. So
Mm.
that's the revolution. Duh.
It's
Pluto and Aquarius.
goosebumpy.
Yeah. Transformative healing now with the deep shadow work and excavating the not oil, but the true potential. This amazing rainbow black. This stuff that's on the flags flying. The kids are waving it. They won't even watch shows if they don't have unicorns and queers in it now. Seriously. And like, culture is changing and it's going to change because it has to.
People are kind of worried about all that kind of meshing of the different types. Like it's like, interracial
Yeah.
interracial mixing. It's like that, only it's bigger and it's all about gender. Like I hear a lot of
Yeah,
people that are quite alarmed by that.
I know. And the kids love it. So that's
Mm.
going to be this wonderful tension.
Hmm.
And I don't mean to minimize the amount of pain that Pluto work brings. So social
Hmm.
tensions may be really hard in this way. People may have so much
Yeah.
pain about this death work of what it takes to actually become authentic. There's so much shedding because authenticity
Hmm.
is aligning with the core. That's that force in the center, similar to the
Hmm.
very center of the earth, super ionic energy there in a calm eye of any storm.
Hmm.
This is the sovereign power. Anyone aligning with the truth is protected. We all just need to do that and really trust that each other's doing that and get better at that. Anybody resistant to that, it's going to be in quite a storm. And you don't want to step into that. And if so, don't let your fear catch you into that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Everybody's got to find center.
Otis, It fills my heart and just my brain too. There's so much to process here in the most, like, it's just the most beautiful information. It makes sense of so much. And I love that you embody it and that you're so willing to share. It's unbelievable.
I find it very empowering that everyone get in touch with their ancestral cultures.
Mm-hmm.
All of the wisdom in our higher potential is there. And it's so wonderful to rediscover and remember. That's what we're here to remember. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
We forget and we're here to remember. And I think this is an extraordinary time of potential remembering. I am very lucky. We're very lucky to hold this painful paradox. It's very intense.
Yes.
And this blessing of this much liberatory truth that we get to embody. This is incredible. So I celebrate it. It's weird. I'll get
Weirdly
into it.
wonderful.
We got,
And
yeah.
here comes March 2023, where things take another big shift. It already feels like it's starting to happen.
A 25-year cycle starting. We're gonna feel it starting now. It's
Yeah.
been starting since Saturn's been in Aquarius since 2020. March, that's when Saturn went into Aquarius. Lol, we know what happened then. We all did something as a collective world that we've never done. We did it together.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it was super Aquarian. It was like pause.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh,
Yes.
space, the vacuousness of space and birds, and like for things to just, oh, it's like, oh,
That's trippy.
right. So, what
Yeah.
you remember about hearing the birds come back and ever being like, whoa, and that pause, whatever bliss you remember in that unknown is the wellness at the center of this. It's going to carry that for 25 years. Just remember that space and feel into what this spaciousness affords us all to remember what's authentic, what feels good to our body, and stay there with the earth. It's radical, revolutionary, but with the R in brackets because it's all birth canal to
Yeah.
evolve. So if the revolutionary isn't evolutionary, it's not doing anything. But I think we're at the point where maybe it can do that. New patterns,
Let's do it.
actual change. It's so cool.
Oh,
New patterns,
yes.
new patterns.
Otis, thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
amazing. I want to listen to this 20 times over and over to just get all the little nuggets in there. Oh my God. I love the part about we're all little shatterlings.
I know, right?
That's so
Kaleidoscopy,
powerful.
three-dimensional
Yes.
shatterlings dancing. It's like bats.
Mm-hmm.
It's faster than you can even track. You gotta learn to feel into the invisible and track.
Yeah.
Mm,
Thank you.
thank you.